my question was basically throughout my education career was, what is it about education that is, I mean, we all are told that you've got to get an education, and you've got to, you can only become successful if you get an education and a master, a degree, and then a master's and a doctorate and so on. But the result of our way in which we raise our children is that we're ending up in a world where we're destroying our planet. So what is it that we've done wrong? So any comments or anything before we start?
Well, I think that's certainly a great question, and we don't do any better in the United States.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating, really. In the previous meetings, we go through actually where it originates from, and it's really a system that was developed by a Prussian emperor. I can't remember his name right now, who actually developed this system called folk schooling, which means the schooling of the population. And his whole purpose of doing so was to create consenting and people who
Compliant,
compliant to authority, and
compliant
they
worker bees.
worker bees, and also fighting his wars in his acquisition of power.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's I can actually just scroll up. It's Wilhelm. Um, where is he? Wilhelm. First of all, there was okay, No Child Left Behind. We went through so many different things, and then of course it was brought to America by like the father of American education. And the terrible things that happened to indigenous people, like the Dawes Act of 1887, where they um, they took Native American Indian children away from their families and put them in these Christian national boarding schools, and basically destroyed their culture and their language and
Hmm.
their
To
knowledge and
assimilate.
wisdom, to
Yeah.
assimilate them into terrible, terrible things that were done. And it wasn't just there. You can go around the world and you can see it happen to the Aborigines. It happened to the Africans, and to, of course, the American Indians and the South American um, Indians, who indigenous people who lived there. But then, if you think about it, it happened to us as original people who lived on the land when that value and belief system was actually imposed upon us. We lost our, I mean, you can think of Stonehenge, and we were very nature loving, and really cared about sustainability and all that sort of thing. But it was replaced with this value and belief system. And I'll explain what it's about. So, all right, so let's just go. I'm just going to go and start. I think Fusi and Brendan are in the room.
Yeah, we here.
Cool, cool. Gotcha. So, hello and welcome to our 47th Help Save Our World Speak online speakers meeting, where we will be revealing and discussing more hidden secrets and truths about education. I'm Denis, the teacher of this quest for the truth, change, and transformation. For those of you who don't know, these meetings are based on my lifelong personal quest for the truth, change, and transformation, and my book titled Beyond the Age of Ignorance, The Quest for the Truth. The purpose of this book, these meetings, and the in-depth course Beyond the Age of Ignorance are to transform the way we think and live in our world, to help save our world for all life on it. This is done by leading people like you on their personal journey of awakening, raising their knowledge, awareness, and consciousness to an age of reason beyond this age of ignorance. Through these processes, we will be uncovering the causes of the world's problems, uncovering what went wrong, when it went wrong, and why it went wrong, and then learning how to change it, coming up with solutions, all while revealing the hidden secret wisdom of nature, life, and the universe that's always existed. It's this love-based creative force that is what brings everything into reality. Ultimately, through your personal thought and life transforming journey, your quest for the truth, change, and transformation, you'll be gathering the knowledge, the skills, and the wisdom you need to empower yourself to make wise choices and to become a wise thought leader of our times. With this wisdom, you will be able to lead others to create and grow a happy, healthy, and sustainable, abundant future for all life on planet Earth. Then, as an added benefit, you will be speaking up for yourself, speaking up for others, speaking up for the voiceless ones, your children, the poor, and all of Mother Nature. By attending these world-changing meetings, you're becoming part of a world transformation movement that's designed to bring fundamental change to human life so that we can help save our world together and avoid the total extinction of life on our planet, because that's where we're heading if we continue as we are. These Help Save Our World online speakers meetings are where we are changing the conversation to change our world. And it all begins with you deciding to make a firm commitment to regularly support us and becoming part of this conversation to help save our world. Let's start with introductions. Chris, could you please introduce yourself, 2 to 3 minutes, tell us all about what you do and your journey at the moment.
My name is Chris Gould. I am coming to you from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I met Dennis through our Toastmasters meetings. I am a lifelong Toastmaster. I love improving speaking skills. Let's see, my journey. I've done a lot of traveling, and I think that traveling is the most important education anybody can have. I was in grade school when my parents thought that Alaska sounded like an adventure. So I lived in Alaska for all my grade school years, except for third grade, where my parents once again wanted some adventure. So they put the house up for sale, bought an RV, and in 1962, we planned to go to South America and run a banana plantation.
Wow.
My mom met with my teachers and got the books that I would need to learn third grade. And I was homeschooled before there was such a term as homeschooling. And we ended up, long story, but we didn't make it to South America. We made it as far as Guatemala. And then we ended up coming back. And I just took a test and passed the third grade to go on to fourth. And then in my adult years here, as you may know, my husband and I sold our house, bought an RV, and lived on the road for 14 years. And in that journey, we met lots of people who were families and homeschooling their kids. Completely different now with the internet. You get complete education. But how much better to actually go to historic places and see them with your own eyes than just to read a book about them. So I'm just fascinated with travel. Travel is my lifelong purpose, and I'm really bummed by being locked down this year, but hopefully we'll pick it back up next year. And South Africa is high on my list. So I
Excellent.
make my living from teaching people how to use their smartphones. Basically, I've been in technology education since the early 80s. I had a stick and brick business, a computer training center. And when my husband and I went on the road in an RV, we found that fellow travelers needed to learn to use their technology. So we started giving classes at RV rallies. And now I put tutorial videos on a website and we make our living from our website. And we do a weekly YouTube show, which is usually on Sundays, which is why I can't normally come here.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. That's so exciting. I have met, I sailed a lot around the world, and I've met so many sailors' children who are absolutely leagues ahead of other children, because traveling and living and experiencing, they know all about the stars and the currents and the tides and different cultures and peoples, and yet, because that's what they're doing all day, they have to learn to be able to survive and thrive in these different changing environments. So I think there's no better way to 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 learn about life than actually living life, getting out there and doing it. So I love that
Couldn't
story.
agree more.
Wonderful. So Brendan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Brendan from South Africa. My surname's Ambrose. Um, I have a great opportunity as I live in the same house as Dennis. So I'm forever getting this natural wisdom, and we've actually got a beautiful garden growing at the moment, which we've now extended up our driveway, which Dennis has taught me how to do permaculture and all that. And yeah, I've got a business going in terms of permaculture to help teach other people as well as make their gardens self-sustaining, make their lives easier for them and the people around them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brendan. Vusi, you can just say hello and anything you want to say.
Yes, hello. My name is Vusmuzi Knowledge Mkwanazi. Actually, I'm here from South Africa. I'm working for Brandon's company, and we are putting in profits in order to build eco villages. What I can just say is that for me, being around, it's a good place to have Mr. Dennis around me because he's just taught me a lot. It's just what I can say for now, but people like you, we need them in life.
Thank you so much, Vusi. That's awesome. Well done. I can remember flying in from America, coming back to South Africa, and of course we're flying over all of the rural indigenous lands, and looking down, you can see that everything about the indigenous way of life is round. It's like round huts, and the mountains are rolling and round and whatever, and how they do their agriculture and so on. But then you get to the borderline of the beginning of sugarcane farms, and everything is so regimental and the way we're schooled is into believing that, or into accepting a very geometrical way of seeing our world. But nature's not square. If you go down to the fundamental energy of light, its vibrations, it's cyclical, it's waves, and if you go into nature itself, atoms and so on, it's patterns, it's round, it's moving, it's changing. We have a very sort of objective, materialistic way of viewing the world. And that is a bias, that's a choice. Because at a subatomic level, what you mainly have is space. And then you have vibrations of energy and waves circling that space. Now, I'm a marine engineer. I've studied physics. I studied mathematics to, into university and so on. And advanced mathematics and physics and so on. So and then I've done a tremendous amount of research into many, many different theories. So what I'm saying is proven and true. I'm not just creating something out of thin air. Nature's not sitting still. It's moving, vibrating, changing. Why do we raise our sedentary, unhealthy, and unfit children? Why do we do that to our children? We take them out of nature where they move and play and sing and dance and are part of this whole system of movement with all of their relationships with everything. And then we make them sit down. We take them out of the loving arms of their parents, out of their community, out of nature, and we put them in boxes, destroying their relationship with nature and their tribe. We extinguish their light energy, their passion, and their consciousness. They exist in these boxes their whole lives, and then they die and are put into boxes, never having truly lived. Being a human being is about living, learning, growing, moving in love, which is relationships, balance, and harmony with that symphony of life, singing, dancing, running, playing, awakening, sensing, thinking, continuously connecting, being creative, and expressing themselves, and choosing, doing, living one's life. We live in a paradigm that is very, very geometrical and has disintegrated us from the true nature of reality. So schooling, now this is a horrific actual structural problem with schooling. Schooling is an institutionalized pyramid scheme, which is designed to perpetuate our current paradigm at almost any cost to the people and nature. Think about it. The layout of classrooms in rows and desks, the position of authority of the teacher standing in dominance over the children in front of the class. The teachers are the source or the purveyors of knowledge, so therefore they have to be respected and so on. Think of the structure of large halls. Like we get all of our children to go to the hall in the morning, and they're large. So this is an expression of power. High ceilings. It has an ethereal sense to the children. Low seating of the pupils. Some sit on the floor and some sit in chairs on the floor level in rows. And then we say, line up in single file, do what you're told. This is regimentation. Think of the raised stages at the front of the hall when you're in lower education. Teachers seated in a position of authority on the stage. The podium then is higher than even the teachers, where the headmaster stands. And this is symbolic, or the indoctrination method of creating authoritarian dominance and subservience to power. Under, of course, country, flag, king, saying the national anthem or singing the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance to authority and power, to the flag, to the country, or the king or the queen, whoever, or the emperor, going right back to the originator of this education system, all under the ultimate authority or symbol of power, which is one God, which means the absolute centralization of power. Thus, and then, of course, saying the Lord's Prayer as well. It's like this subservience to supreme power. And it's ritualized domestication and indoctrination. And people just don't see that. It's like, this is hidden. So if you look at various different institutions of power, they are, within our Western society, unsustainable pyramid schemes, like religions, schools, businesses, governments, corporations, banks. They're all about this centralization of wealth and power and authoritarian dominance. These are systemic problems which are institutionalized in everything we think, everything we experience through our westernized education system. So here's an example of each one of these circles represents a human being. And of course, in a pyramid scheme, you have this lower classes, a middle class, and an upper class. And then, of course, the supremely rich at the top. So we are all driven by fundamental beliefs like fear of scarcity and blind belief in the system. You very seldom find anybody questioning those symbols of power. So they're designed, of course, to disempower the individuals and communities and tribes. The primary purpose is to empower the leader, then the ruling classes and the middle class. And of course, that's done by ultimately nature and the serf classes. And of course, most of the labor is done by the lower class. All of this happens at the expense of individuals, nature, and the tribes. The people are separated from the land, nature, and community relationships. So this absolute centralization of power, one totalitarian ruler, one principal, one headmaster, one god, it's a system to create that into the future. Okay. Each supporter empowers the system with his or her energy. Wealth goes up the pyramid scheme. It always goes up. That's why we have a system where we have extremely wealthy people at the top of the system. And of course, plunder of wealth and the people of the land and give it to the pyramid scheme. So this is continuous process. You know, you can look at Western agriculture and so on. We are using monoculture agriculture and plowing and herbicides and pesticides, and we're killing nature, and we're chopping down our forests and our jungles and everything, all to turn it into dead things for consumption and for money. So, and the money is an extraction system so that that wealth can be centralized in the hands of a few. It's an unsustainable continuous growth extraction model in a limited world, because we've got one world and we've only got so many ecosystems and so many trees. And this is a growing, ever growing continuous growth system, which ultimately will end up in total collapse, and everyone loses in the end. All right, I'm just going to stop there for a moment. What do you think, Chris?
I think that you are framing it just perfectly. It is everything I believe, but hadn't ever seen it in that pyramid scheme. And yeah, absolutely. But what do you do about it? And it just grows and grows. And once it's gotten to a certain point, then it's so hard to dismantle it because of the power. You know, the power is existing at the top of that scheme, and the masses at the bottom have no power. I mean, you know, we're going through an election right now in the United States, and this is the one power that the masses at the bottom have, is to vote. And we have been, over the years, relinquishing that power. You're seeing a lot of people voting this year. It's cool. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what else.
I was terrified that I was going into territory that you didn't want to hear.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
It's exactly right.
And you know what it's amazing for me is really the energy and the power of this whole system is the people. So we, the people, have the power to bring about fundamental change. But if we don't exercise that right, if we don't actually challenge power, then ultimately we are responsible for the world we end up in. It's like, so here I am speaking out at maybe great expense to myself, but time for fear is over. Our children and our survival on this planet is at stake. I mean, I've traveled the world and you've traveled the world. Have you not noticed extreme changes in the environment around you?
Oh, yeah. One of my, we're scuba divers, and one of my lifelong ambitions was to scuba dive in the Great Barrier Reef. We did that last year, and it's dead, or at least
Oh,
what we saw. What we saw was dead reef, and yeah, very depressing.
yeah, I've done a lot of diving and snorkeling around the world as well as a captain I grew up on the beaches of Natal as a lifesaver on the beach and so on. So I was down in the pools just at Scotbury. We had a holiday about a month ago, and I was, or two ago, might even be three. Anyway, so recently, and there's still some sponges. There's still some tropical fish. There's still some, but it's nowhere near the paradise I grew up in. Times that we are literally, and people don't bring it up. The herbicides and pesticides end up in the rivers, so they kill all living organisms in the river, and then they end up going into the ocean and they kill the plankton and the living organisms, the microorganisms in the ocean, and of course then everything collapses.
And then there's the plastics.
And the plastics, oh my gosh, and all of the junk. I mean, I had a picture the other day of Durban Harbor, and it's just like as far as you can see, basically all around every vessel is just this plastic and garbage and everything. And there's all of those things that have to be dealt with. But I think that's dealing. It's important, but that's dealing with the symptoms and not the cause. The cause is changing our whole way of life. So I basically went and studied many, many different religions, but the dominant religion, which has basically been part of, originally started with the Torah and the 5 books of Moses, and there's a certain set of values and beliefs in that, and then those get combined with in 300 AD by Emperor Constantine to form the Roman Catholic Church and the Holy Bible and everything. And then that is then spread out across the world and does all of this damage. But the fundamental values and beliefs are in those original 5 books. And the fundamental things was, I mean, Moses actually was an Egyptian, raised by an Egyptian ruler, and he learned all about pyramid schemes. I mean, what do you think those pyramids represent? It represents pyramids of power. And nobody talks about that, but that's what it is. So for those, like, he basically gets them to take whatever they can from the I can't think of what that king that they call those kings, the Pharaoh, from the Pharaoh, and head out into the desert. And basically he has a lot of power over the people, and basically there's a fear of scarcity, and he gets them to believe in his God, and that represents absolute power, and only he has the ability to communicate with that God. So he then tells them to give him 10% of the wealth, and of course now he becomes more powerful than anyone else in the group. And then he says, go take vengeance on the Midianites, go kill and steal all their stuff and bring it back, and then give 10% of the what you've stolen, and 10% of or basically kill all of the women that have been with the man, and kill all of the young boys, basically because he doesn't want to be overthrown later on in life. And then he says, give 10% of the young woman to the church to mind the livestock that you've just stolen, and the 10% that's been given to the church. And then he says, take the rest and subdivide it between yourselves. So basically what he's doing there is he's building a pyramid of power, and he's empowering the people within the pyramid to carry on doing what he does. So warring becomes at that stage like a big part of this value and belief system which has affected us all the way into the future. So just why do we have so many wars and why are they fought in the name of God? Well, that's what it is. It's about centralization of power, about pyramid schemes. So always a percentage goes to the top. Tithing, centralizing wealth and power. You know, it was a sheep, or it was half a shekel or 1 shekel at various times throughout the time of that growth of that old religion. So the value and belief system is really a taking and a plundering system, warring, killing, murdering, taking. So then the idea of private property ownership, it's like, God gave us the promised land. It's like, really? So you own this land? We don't own the land. We all just get to live on it and get to take what we need and constantly give back. That's the true nature of reality. The idea of private property ownership is like where we start to move away from a giving and receiving society to a taking society. So segregation, it's divide and rule, divide and conquer. We are the chosen ones. That's elitism. And we have a right to take more than we need, to become rich and powerful, and to do as we please. So divide and rule, divide and conquer. It's a demonization of the other, the people who live on the land. The idea of we are above nature and have dominion over nature, and so therefore we can do as we please, are all basically negative and destructive values and beliefs. Absolutism, everything's black and white, heaven and hell, good and evil. It's like, no, we live in this world of color and variance and change and vibrations and cycles and movement. It's like, where's the absolute black and white and extremes like that? There isn't. It's just a belief. It's an abstract idea. Number on the first day, on the second day, chronological time. It's like seen as day and night. It's not seen as, being outside there in nature, you know that from early morning, like the light starts to increase, and then the sun rises and the warmth starts to increase, and the amount of light and the intensity of the heat of midday, and then going down into the late afternoon, the long shadows, the evening, the darkness. It's a cycle. It's not an absolute one or the other. Then materialism, the objectification of reality. God created everything once, and that's the way it is. And when in actual fact, if you just go and you watch the tides flowing out of a ravine, and you at low tide, what do they call them? They call them, when you're connected to the ocean, freshwater to the ocean. I can't think of the word, but basically, as it runs out, it forms all of these patterns of little ripples in the sand. And as the water runs down, it's like it's running down and it's moving all these little particles of sand and creating all sorts of shapes. And it's absolutely beautiful. And then the tide comes in and everything changes. And in between those tides, all of the little crabs and the slugs and everything come out and they all move along the beach. It's absolutely magnificent, but it's changing all the time. And we think that we don't live in a changing world, that we live in a material world. And it's like, even railway lines, which are these long pieces, like hundreds of meters of steel, they have expansion gaps in between them. And the reason why is that they expand and contract according to the heat of the day. And when it's really hot, they just about close. And when it cools down to freezing cold in a very cold area, you can hear the wheels going ka-tuck, 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 hitting those gaps. And it's the same with cement on your highways and bridges. They have expansion gaps because everything is expanding and contracting. We live in a dynamic world. And so we don't live in this absolutist world. So anyway, so in education, one of the big things in America is SICM. It sounds like you're chasing or telling your dog to bite somebody. But its specialization is very big. Individualism, you separate everyone and you get them to compete against one another. So competition. Consumerism, you get them to go and buy books and pencils and so on. So it's you're creating this whole consumeristic, capitalistic society. You have to go and make money to buy all of this stuff to be part of the system. Exceptionalism, you've always got to be the best. It's like biggest and best is like one of the most extreme things in America, you know. And then, of course, materialism. And then, of course, physics. Now, I studied physics and mathematics and many other different areas of study, but absolutism is a fundamental premise. It's like the unit 1 foot, 1 inch, materialism, reductionism, breaking everything down to the atom, to a thing. Atoms aren't things. We live in this spinning, vibrating, turning, galactically, movement around the sun. We are expressions of motion. Every atom has to be motion if it's part of this reality. And if it is made of vibrations, as Einstein says, everything is made of vibrations. So we reduce down to atoms and we oversimplify what everything is. And then, of course, we standardize quantification, measure, scale, number, time. It's like, I was just explaining to everyone about number. You know, if you look at a tree, you can say 1 tree, but what is that? That's a unique living being, changing processes. You know, it's this wonderful process. It's not a thing. See, how can you call it 1? Because there's no other tree in the universe that's identical to that tree, or occupies this, or is composed of the same energy, or occupies the same space. So we have these abstract ways of thinking. And then religion continued, regimentation, authoritarianism, simplification, beginnings and ends. We live in a connected universe where energy is not created nor destroyed. It's flowing like ripples in a pond out from the sun in all different directions, and then out from every other star in all different directions. And there's this constant flow of giving and receiving of energy and light and all different frequencies. There is no beginning in that. It's just energy enters in the photoelectric effect and becomes part of, and then radiates outwards. Everything you can see is the result of that process. All right, so we have a whole lot of abstract ideas and values and beliefs, which are not really great. Okay, so anybody want to comment? Chris?
Well, I'd never thought of the Egyptian pyramids as representing a pyramid of power, but that's a very interesting thought. And I just really, really like the idea that giving and receiving and constant motion is the natural state of things, and our system is fighting with that, trying to make things black and white. And what did you say? I think you said taking instead of giving and receiving. Yep. Agree.
It's horrendous when you see it. It's like, oh my gosh, really? It just on that idea of that, when we look out at the stars, all right, we can only see the stars because the energy that radiated out from that star in vibrations, light vibrations of space, all right, has hit our retina, and then we perceive that energy. And because we've learned to speak a language, we recognize it and we say star, which is an energy pattern. So it's patterns of energy, vibrations, and we create vibrations to explain what it is. So we live in this connected electromagnetic universe where energy and information and consciousness is all part of the nature of the universe. It's absolutely magical. When you see it, it's like, oh my gosh. So here we have just an interesting principle is that creating a class-based society. So the principal headmaster, one male ruler, totalitarian ruler, one flag, one god, one preparation for the one ruler. That's what the education system is really designed to, subservience to power. So the teacher class, so of course that's that group there. And then the teacher and the other ruling classes fall into this owner class. And then of course, you know how the schools are designed with an A class, a B class, a C class, and so on. The higher one rises, the more distracted and unconscious as specialists one becomes. So I say it like, oh, certain people have become doctors of indoctrination. It's like they are such specialists that they literally have their head in the sand. They can prescribe the most incredible pills and medicines and whatever. They can do all sorts of things, but holistically dealing with the human, the diet, the exercise, who you are and how to live naturally and so on, that's not part of their education. It's like, so they become so distracted that they really aren't the healers that they could become. So everything becomes pills and scalpels instead of actually dealing with the individual's problems. Then, of course, the lower classes are considered less worthy. They're despicable. They are less wealthy. They're paid less. And, of course, they're labor classes, so they have to do all the work. And ultimately, that's the upside down model, because these are the people who are living and making it all happen. And these are the people who are sitting on their laurels as in their socialistic society, as they would put it in America. Instead of caring for everyone, they only care about themselves. And of course, that principle is really the fundamental principle. The system is designed to make the ruling classes exceptionally rich at the expense of everyone else. It's a lifeboat model. It's like we take everything and we don't care about anyone else. So the ultimate purpose of the absolute centralization of power. Now, you might have seen, Chris, the Washington Monument, and how everyone is so like, oh my gosh, it's the Washington Monument. When I arrived in DC, and I walked around from the subway, and I walked around these heavy, like solid buildings, like they were just so thick at the base. And then I looked at the cathedral, and it was enormous and awe-inspiring, all symbols of power. And I come around the corner and I see the Washington Monument, and I'm like, no, can anyone see what I can see? And I go up to some guy, and can you see that? And he says, oh yes, that's the one Washington Monument. It's the symbol of America's greatness. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do you know what that actually means? So it's a symbol of absolute centralization of power, the continuous extraction by the rich, resulting in the total imbalances of wealth and power in our world and in the country. Ultimately is what it symbolizes in terms of the Washington Monument. So this is the results in the collapse of the middle classes and the lower classes. Have you noticed with the financial collapses that are happening, that middle class is starting to disappear, and the poor classes are becoming more and more poor and homeless and on the streets? That's what's happening. This is only possible when maintained by systems of force. This system results in the mega rich, in the mega rich and slavery, peasants. Like over the years, they've had many, many different names, like peasants and slaves and many derogatory terms. So the monolith represents male dominance, of course, male phallic symbol, force and fear. And institutionalized systems of force are there's so many of them. I just like list some of them. Yeah, CIA, FBI, NSA, TSA, customs, police, military, documents, social security, passports, identity documents, licensing, laws, courts, governments, fines, everything that they do is about perpetuating this system of force and power. Because in nature, when there's imbalance, nature will allow it to some degree, but then it'll correct and create and correct those imbalances. But with all of these systems of force, it's possible for these people to remain so wealthy at the expense of everyone else, like nuclear bombs and war machines and whatever. All of that stuff is the reason why these people are able to keep on doing that. But ultimately, what we don't remember, that we are the people, all right, that give them that power. Without our support, without the military and the blah, 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 all of these things, they lose their power. So it's really about what we are doing that will change that power-based structure. Only the rich and the deprived masses remain. Peasants, serfs, slaves, with no basic human rights to land, food, water, knowledge, wisdom, trying to exist in a devastated planet and unnatural world, resulting in homelessness, poverty, suffering, starvation, and ultimately our extinction, because that's where we're heading. Any comments on that, Chris? I don't think the other guys will be able to comment.
Just agreeing every step of the way, and really glad I showed up today.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
And I just wrote an article on my personal blog about universal basic income, which I touch on some of these same points. I hope you get to read it and give me some comments too.
Okay, I would love to. I can actually comment on it now. I mean, we can carry on with this, but I'll comment on it now if you want. The idea of a universal basic income is like, if you have created a power-based system where there's absolutely no way people are going to get jobs, and of course with the end of the physical industrial revolution, where everyone was able to get jobs and so on, and then now the technological revolution, where of course there's been an incredible reduction in the number of actual labor-based jobs. Now you have this population of people that are living in concrete jungles, all right? And they don't have the ability to grow their own food. They don't have the ability to access their own water. They don't have the ability to do any of those things. It is a basic sort of humane requirement that you give them a universal basic income, all right? And money is really, if it comes down to it, it's not real. It's just keystrokes or digits on a screen. It's ephemeral. It's not real. It's fundamentally a lie. It's an abstract idea. It's a believed construct. And this idea that we are so many $1 trillion in debt, it's a believed construct. And the people who were the manufacturers of currency, the Federal Reserve, is a private corporation, all right? And they hold this sort of sword of Damocles over government and everyone to keep us working and laboring to basically give them everything. So the idea of giving people some keystrokes and just making a program and just making sure everyone's got money would be as simple as pie, all right? It's easy. But the problem with that, I don't want to see anyone ever suffer, all right? But the moment you create dependence upon a destructive system, you perpetuate the system. So ultimately, a better way of doing it would be to take that money and to create sustainable teaching eco-villages on the land, and take all of those homeless people and teach them how to create sustainable living systems on the land, and to grow and to nurture life into abundance. Because true wealth is not money. It's in the trees, it's in the plants, it's in animals, it's in the living systems around us. That is ultimately wealth. And of course, people who used to live that way were, although they didn't have money, they were the truly wealthy people in our world. And that's all been plundered and taken away from them with money as an extraction system. So there's a double-edged sword to that. That's all I wanted to say.
I hear you, and I agree. My thought is that if you are, if how does the saying go? If you are digging a ditch, you're digging a hole. We are all going down in a hole in this society right now. We have people in such dire poverty, even though we are in this rich country. And I would love to see sustainable communities on the land, but I don't. First, you got to stop digging. Is my first. You got to make it so that people aren't starving. Once they aren't starving and they have a basic income, then I think some of those people will learn to create the sustainable communities.
I think it's not just money. It's a natural education, giving them the natural wisdom, the skills, the knowledge, the everything they need, the basic tools, the land, the food to keep them going, and the seeds to get them established. It's a process that takes money. So we need to create transition systems to help people transition to sustainability. And if we don't do that, we're all done for anyway. So whether you give them money or not, it's like you're wasting your time.
Right. So, I agree there too.
So temporary solution, temporary relief from suffering, absolutely. But the true solution is decentralization of wealth and power and the re-empowerment of people on the land. So, some collapses. Ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, Incan civilization, Easter Island. Now, Easter Island, that one is like, for me, the horror of it. It's like all these people lived on the land and they had all these trees and plant life and they lived sustainably. And then they started chopping down their trees to move big stones around the islands and put up these big religious figureheads or emperors or rulers' heads. And they devastated the living systems. They chopped down what was sustaining their lives. They lost their topsoil and they became extinct. They were gone. Bam. And now we are doing that same thing to our whole planet. They say that we've got like 60 years of topsoil left to sustain our population through Western agriculture, plowing, and then, of course, erosion of all kinds. How are we going to sustain a growing population that's growing exponentially if we don't tend to and nurture and regrow the living ecosystems, the balances of nature that we need to sustain life? We're not going to survive. This is so important. And I just wish I could just say to the people of the world, this is what you need to know. And go out and do it. And if we could do that, we could change our world in future generations. But teaching our children, changing the way we raise our children, is that critical element. So the final stage of all pyramid schemes is total collapse of nature and society. The only way to survive is to return to living on the land, sowing, growing, and regenerating the balances of life, the ecosystems that sustain life. And it's in that complexity and the biodiversity that an ecosystem it becomes more bulletproof and more able to sustain itself. So we are killing and destroying. The extinction rate is like the highest since the dinosaurs. We are literally wiping out all forms of life across this planet, and they are essential to our survival. So we have to care for nature and create safe zones like areas of the ocean where we don't plunder, and areas of land which, like maybe the Amazon jungle, which should be a no-go zone for any agriculture, anything like that. But of course, solutions need to include humans, because if we don't include humans in solutions, then we are not solving anything. So it's care of nature, it's care about humanity, and it's care for everything, all of the ecosystems, the air, the water, the oceans, the land, and everything. If we do nothing to change ourselves and the way we raise our children, their future will be extreme suffering and extinction. Oh yeah, and Albert Einstein says, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Okay, so let me just go to this conclusion quickly. You have the power to heal yourself, your children, and empower them to heal themselves and heal our world. You can avoid extinction and create a happy, healthy, and sustainable new age of reason, wisdom, and enlightenment. You can do this by changing the way you think and live in the world, by going on your own personal quest for the truth, change, and transformation. Through this thought and life-changing journey, you'll transition to living and growing a happy, healthy, and sustainable, and abundant future where we all thrive. By choosing to be open-minded, thinking, and questioning everything on your thought journey, you'll find the truth as you begin remembering, uncovering this timeless, secret, hidden wisdom of life, nature, and the universe. All of this while awakening and seeing the abstract ideas, the biased concepts, and the outright lies of the dominant world-destroying paradigm. Eventually seeing the big picture, you will clearly see what we can do to help save our world. To us, it is an obvious choice to continue to extinction or to create sustainable teaching eco-villages, where we raise our children and teach others the knowledge, skills, and wisdom that they need, so we can all begin to change our world together. Having created one eco-village, our graduates and leaders will go out and spread this wisdom and these teaching eco-villages around the world. Think about it. If all of humanity is empowered with this enlightened natural wisdom and perspective, they will naturally create an age of reason beyond this age of ignorance. And living this way of life, we'll grow a happy, healthy, and sustainable future where we all live in love, balance, and harmony with one another as one with Mother Nature. Please join us, donate, subscribe, share, and invite others. And let's create a worldwide movement of fundamental change to help save our world. Please talk to everybody, talk to your friends and family, and get them all to join us too. Remember, fundamental change begins with you and me, and of course the rest of humanity. So let's change the conversation to change our world. Let's spread the truth and create an age of reason beyond this age of ignorance. Thank you. So Chris, go ahead, comment.
And thank you. Are there any of these eco villages as your vision in existence right now? Can you point to any experiments?
There are all around the world. There are people doing it, but I grew up in 9 miles inland from Hebridean. We had a native trading store, and the Zulu chief, his wives, and extended family, and so on. We all shared this small piece of land. And we grew everything. We had everything from chickens to ducks to goats to pigs and grew all of our own food around us. So I grew up in one of those eco villages. So I know what it is. I've lived it. Then, of course, there are many people. Like I've got a friend who lives in Fiji, and basically running on this idea. They were sailing around the world, and they got to Fiji, and they managed to get a 100-year leasehold on a piece of land on Fiji, and they basically are living sustainably there. Another friend of mine bought land in, first of all, he bought the piece of property next to his house, and then we started to do permaculture together there. And then he went and sold that property, combined property with their gardens and everything. And then he went and bought a farm up near Okeechobee. So I don't know how far he's got because I haven't seen him for a long time, but he made contact with me about a month or two ago. And basically if you go online, there are eco-villages around the world. There is an eco-village site, which has like ecovillages.com or something. And they have links to all of the eco-villages basically around the world. But what I am talking about is slightly different. It's creating eco-villages based on sustainable natural wisdom. It really, all of these teachings that I've acquired and learned throughout my whole life. I basically went on a quest in my 20s, and I've been collecting and learning and developing and changing to create this body of knowledge. And I've studied many, many, many religions and belief systems and values and belief systems and ways of life and permaculture. And I basically have spent my life on this journey. And although I used other things to fund it. Now, the thing is the critical thing is most people are stuck in a city now, and they don't necessarily have the money to fund that transition. And the critical thing is to come up with a transition system. Like, for example, you're working in your caravan and you're teaching technology. That's your transition system. That's what funds your ability to move and change and live your life. And that's the sort of thing that I'm working on right now, creating marketing systems to get more people to be able to create transition systems so that people can have the bridges to the future that they want to create. So we basically need to take the abstract money and convert it into living systems, as opposed to this picture behind me is really living systems going into a meat grinder and fat people standing there and grinding it and money coming out the other side to create dead cities. So this is a reversal of that process. It's converting money into planting the seeds and reclaiming nature and regrowing through succession planting, creating food forests and a better future for us all. That's our dream.
Awesome.
There was a great exodus, they call it the brain drain, when so many South Africans took all of their money, invested in sailboats, and jumped in their sailboats and sailed away.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah. So I managed to get like a really old, broken down sailboat, but then I realized it wasn't going to sail. So, and I didn't have any more money left because I gave everything away to my wife. I gave her my house, the car, the factory, everything. And I said, okay, it's all yours. I'm leaving. Because of course we had a breakup and I'd nearly died because of that. So I just jumped on the first sailboat that was leaving town and sailed down the coast. And then I got down to Cape Town. That guy got cold feet. I jumped on another sailboat and I was gone. And I arrived there with $20 in my pocket and 29 days to get out of the country. And I managed to pull it off. So,
wow.
Crazy stuff.
You mentioned a book or two. Was any?
Oh,
do you
yeah.
do you have all this in? Do you have your story in a book or a blog?
No, I didn't actually I haven't done my story in a blog or something like that. I've never thought of that. I've always been like, oh, let me tell you what's going on and how to change it. But
yeah, but what gives meat to that is your story.
So I'm
to me.
I've got to tell my stories.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I'm going to have to read your blog, and I've got it all written down here. So I'll do that.
Okay.
So thank you so much for coming. It's like you made my day. Like everyone flaked on me today, but you know, we've got a lot of people in the group, and the recordings that they get, they watch them and so on. So I never think of any situation as a loss. I mean, if this is also going up online and it's going to my 5 different Facebook pages and whatever. So whatever it is, it's getting out there. It just takes one or two people to like say, oh my gosh, you've got to hear this, and boom, and it'll take off. So, and then of course I'm doing this marketing thing to create, to bring in some money to be able to fund this, because of course I earn $100 a month where I am in South Africa. Absolutely ridiculous. That my daughter basically feeds me and gives me a roof over my head. So, so for me, life is not about money. It's about giving and receiving. It's about relationships. It's about caring and sharing, and basically giving everything you can of yourself, because if we don't, then there is no future. So that's it.
Well, it's been an inspiration, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. You made my day from being here. Vusi, are you there? Brendan?
Yes,
Thanks a lot,
hello,
Chris.
Mr. Dennis.
Yes, Vusi. Talk.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, yeah. Actually, what I can really say, Mr. Dennis, from the streets. Actually, I didn't like. I'm coming from the streets. You know, you helped me out from the streets, and like you trying by all means and by all your best to get life easier, not for only me, but for also from the community where I'm coming from. But what I can just say is that please, Lord, just help even the men, Brendan, the company to grow up and everything, and help people and children to get more education so life can. We know we need to learn. There are more children that have to learn here in South Africa in order to get a better living. As like you not even you are rich, but you have to give. It's not about to being rich. It's just have to share in order people can survive. That's the only thing I can say. It's just Mr. Dennis, God can be with you, and we need you a lot, and we need people to also to support us. That's what I can say for now. But anyway, thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, Vusi. That's wonderful. Yes, we will do our best, and that's what we're going to do. Bye.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.